Okay, let's see what's going on. This is justAguy's Mel, and he's doing kind of like an homage to Hornet from Silk Song, who has long, skinny legs and this kind of like cape. And then the head looks like this, which is amazing. Hello. But somehow it's just like tipping over and not really moving. So let's talk about what Mel's is and is not. So it is not the kind of AI where it's just like you say a thing and then it makes it happen and it just magically works. No, it is a legit robot simulator that uses like real robot mechanics and then uses a form of AI called reinforcement learning, right? Where this little piece together robot teaches itself how to move. So all it is, you're basically making a pile of bones and muscles. And then there is no magic by which you're like, okay, now be awesome, and look right. But what you can do is deliberately build the muscles and the bones in such a way that you can then give it these indirect rewards so that it can train itself. I mean, it's hard, right? Because it's like you have to understand how to build a robot, and then you have to understand how to use this weird like indirect way of motivating it to learn properly, right? But let's break this thing down and see what we've got. Like basically we have a robot here with this cape that is purely aesthetic. So let's strip that away for now and see if we can just like look at the insides of this thing, like what its guts are. Let's see if we can get those working. And we've got heavy structure, right? And skinny legs, because that's the character. The character is a skinny-legged thing. It's drawn. It's a cartoon. So, and we're going to try to get it to work in physical form. So, good luck to us because that's a hard physics problem, right? So let's start by just training this inside bit. And what we've got here is, let's see, we have a neckish part that with no range of motion. Let's give it just a little bit of give. No, I changed my mind because the head is too heavy. You don't want flop because flop is going to mean tip, right? So we've got this part that's a little bit of a torso that can take up a little bit of slack that can help it readjust if it starts to tip. It can learn that if it engages when a certain thing is happening, then that can help it get the reward that tells it to stay up. So let's keep that. Let's keep this. Let's maybe give them even a little more range. I don't know. It might end up just being pretty wiggly, but it's worth a try. And then we've got these legs with a little bit of like very minimal lateral motion. Here, I'll show you like that much. It's like very small. And then we've got some skinnier, longer legs on that. We're telling it to keep its head high. We're telling it to keep its head upright, so don't tip too much. We're telling it it's caring less about whether it's facing the place where you just clicked. Like that's a secondary concern. In fact, I might even set it to nothing. We are telling it to go. Actually, why don't we have this lower at first? Now the Hornet character that this is based on is a zippy character. It's fast, which means that eventually we're going to want that high because that's the way to get a robot to move fast. But for now, when our first concern is just to like have basic structural integrity, then let's just start there. Um, and I want to check to see whether the weight of the thing is balanced over where these teeny tiny feet-ish things are, because it doesn't even really have feet. We might want to change that in time. We'll see. And yeah, there's a backwards lean here, which tells me that maybe the feet want to be even further back. Let me just try that. I don't know if it's going to work, but it's certainly worth a try. Do the legs want to be longer? Maybe, because I think this is quite a long-legged character. Um, but it kind of worked. At least it's up right now. So let me see what happens when I try to make it go. I'm a little worried to do it, but let me try. Go. You know, it's not really going much, but well, it's a bit going. But at least it's managing to stay up. So that's a start. That's not nothing. So now here's what I'm curious about. I look at the graph, at the training graph, and I see that the rewards that it's getting when it trains is like, yay, good. What's its name? Good Hornet. You are staying high. Your head is high. Goodish Hornet, your head is staying upright, and the distance reward is very light, right? So we'll want to dial that up for sure. My concern is now it's going to agitate the other stuff, but I mean, we can try and we can see what happens and then we can adjust. How this one I'm paying attention to while it learns. Indeed, as it tries to move more, then it's falling more. But what I'm trying to notice is when it fails, how is it failing? Like here you can see it kind of like struggling to figure out how to move. And like basically it's figuring out that if it keeps its feet further apart, then it has at least 2 points of contact. So it's not like putting all this height and weight onto one thing on the ground. So it's trying to keep, 2 feet on the ground whenever possible. Like it's hard being a biped. It's here's what I notice is it does better when it keeps its feet apart from each other, and it's doing that in the forwards backwards direction. So why not give it a little more width in the hips, and see if that's of use to it. So let's resize those. You know, we don't want them to be too wide because that's not how the character is. And then I'm also just curious what happens if we give it some feet to kind of like, so it has like one more pivot point, you know, so it can like have a little sway and a little something that it can work with, you know, when it's trying to kind of like adjust and be like, no, no, I want to be upright. Remember that JustAguy does not love visible joints. And so let's go ahead and tuck those inside the leg. Um, it's like it's becoming a slightly less evocative of the character, but maybe that won't kill it. And I don't know, I think this is about as far as I'm going to take this for today, but it is not a tragic fail. It is not dashing around like crazy, but it is recognizable as the character that it is. It needs to have its cape reapplied, but it can move around and be, you know, a proper representation of Hornet. You know, when you watch the videos online of the robots in real life doing catastrophic failures, there's a reason for that. Like being a biped is like no joke hard.